Welcome to the Seraphine podcast. I am Seraphine Arocha, and today we are with Tom Beaver, director, writer, actor, just filmmaker extraordinaire, but also one of my oldest friends. Welcome.
Thanks, Seraphine. It's nice to be here.
It's good to have you.
Finally.
I know.
We've been talking about doing this for a while.
A long time. I had reached out to Tom when I started the podcast, and I was trying to think about the kinds of guests that when this would grow, who was my fantasy guest in the chair. We both love film, like to a point where you're going to see when we get into the conversation how nerdy we are about films. But he lives in Austin, Texas, where one of my favorite directors has resided for a while, and that's Richard Linklater. I remember that conversation. Like I was on the phone with you for almost an hour, and you were like, "Girl, you, good luck with that." But you know, it was a good one because you gave me a lot of feedback on where to go with this. So my question to you is, you have dabbled in a lot of different areas in filmmaking, and I think you found your love in directing. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Take me on where it went from acting to where directing came in.
Well, I like acting, and I still act. I still have an agent that I'm with in Austin, but you know, it's like you just reach a point where you get a little long in the tooth, you get a little older, and you start to, nowadays anyone can make a movie. So I reached this point where I was tired of, when you're an actor, you're just waiting on people. You're waiting on people to hire you. You're entirely dependent on, you know, these crazy avenues that, you know, billions of people are navigating, agents, casting agents, headshots, all that rigmarole. I just got tired of going through all that and not seeing, you know, the results that I'd like to see. So I started making my own micro budget projects. I started around 2008 or 2009, right about that period.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it ever since. It's more satisfying, way more satisfying.
You know, it's funny because
than sitting around waiting
exactly
for somebody to call and be like, "Oh, you've been I mean, all actors have to go through it, but it sounds petty to complain about it. It's just part of the thing.
Yeah.
But I reached a point where I was just
done.
I mean, although I do still do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes.
So was your first one, I was looking up on IMDb, that's why I've got my phone out right now. The Nervous System, was that your first one?
That's the first time I got a location and cast and wrote a script and made a film, a movie. It's funny to call it a film.
I know, because we're really not working on film. No, we're not on film anymore.
They're like high-end movies,
yeah.
High-end digital video. But yeah, that's the first time I did it. I was in Los Angeles, and that was a very, very satisfying experience. So when I did that, I was like, yeah, I can continue to do this as long as you can continue to get the funds to make the things, which is always the trick.
It is. And I mean, that's where I learned so much as I started to appreciate what it takes to put together a film. And, you know, I watched everything about Richard Linklater, and he was one of those people that defied Hollywood in so many ways and just said, I'm going to make the films I want to make.
And you watched that documentary.
Yeah. And
that was great.
Yeah.
That was a really good documentary.
And it's funny because I think, you know, your path, it's kind of in that realm of Linklater, but of course, you know, I feel like
not quite as high a profile,
right?
by any stretch.
But the soul and the heart of it is there. So I guess, where did you go to school? You went to film school, right?
No, I went to the American Musical and Dramatic Academy in New York City.
Okay.
And I went for acting in 1994, and that was that's right around where it started percolating that I didn't just want to be a hired hand like an actor.
Yeah.
So I came back to Kansas City and started writing and directing plays and acting in them, and after AMDA. And that's actually probably where I really caught the bug.
Yeah.
For having more control over what you're doing, the content, writing it, directing it, photographing it. That came later after the plays, but it all kind of started with the playwriting. I mean, you remember when I was doing
Oh, I
you
totally
probably
remember
came
that.
and saw a few of them.
Yeah.
In the late 90s.
Yeah, the late 90s. My God. Now, and then, what did you feel like in terms of Kansas City? Because you've been in Kansas City doing work, Los Angeles doing work, and then
Chicago.
You did Chicago as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And
theater
then
work.
And then to Austin. Did you ever do anything in New York?
No, just acting school.
What
in
made
94,
you
95.
What made you not get bitten by the bug in New York?
Well, I was in the they called it the studio program, I believe, at AMDA. And when I just moved back to Kansas City to put on plays. I probably could have stayed in New York. I mean, it was rather expensive. I was 19, 20 years old, but I don't know. I don't think it ever occurred to me.
And then how long were you in Kansas City before you moved to Los Angeles?
I moved. I've been all over from the time I got out of AMDA, which was 94. Then I went to Kansas City, started doing plays. Then I went to Chicago, and then I started doing the Los Angeles thing, which I did for about 10 years.
So
the Los Angeles,
thing. And this is the thing that's so crazy. So we're friends. And I know the stories and the timelines based on our friendship. But it's so weird to see it listed on like Wikipedia or IMDb. Basically, on IMDb, they say, what is he best known for? Well, one of the first ones that come up is literally Tommy in the horror thriller Soul Survivors.
Oh, God.
I mean, all right. So take me down this role. I want to know. This is the stuff I love, because Tom, if you see his work now, he prides himself on doing good work. He's a bit of a snob about some things, but I also love
huge snob
that you have earned your snobbery, because
incorrigible snob.
You literally did the shit that like most people.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they
for years,
love and die for it, and you were like, screw this. So I want to know, how the hell did you get Tommy, AKA Tom Beaver, in Soul Survivor?
Well, I have no idea why that's prominent on the IMDb page.
Yes, it is.
But that was just, I had a bit role in that. And I think that was something I did in 2000, 2001. I literally, as a walk-on part. Yeah. Like you walk on and I like some girl's in a phone booth and I scare the shit out of her. And then.
But you didn't die in it?
No. Okay. I didn't die in it. Not that you saw.
The other one that is absolutely, I was like, how does IMDb?
I'm really afraid of what you're going to say.
This
really
is my
afraid
favorite.
of what you're going to point out.
So you worked with three legends, and that would be Chris Kirkpatrick, Lance Bass, and Joey Fatone of NSYNC.
I knew that's what you were going to point out.
And it was Man on the L Train, and the movie is called On the Line, when God. Lance Bass was still considered heterosexual. So how was that experience? And did you get any FaceTime with our boys on NSYNC?
Well, it was the highlight of my life. No, that day we shot, that was like a bit part. And it was on a train. That might have literally been extra work.
Yeah.
And we were on the line, on the L train in Chicago. And the only thing I remember about that day is that it was Lance, what's his name?
Bass. Yes.
It was Lance Bass's birthday. So they had brought like a cake on the train, and he was blowing it. That's the only thing I remember about that. That and the fact that they were shooting the scene on the train. So we went round and round and round and round all day. You kind of felt like you were going insane. It's like,
oh my God.
And there's a bunch of people on the train, obviously.
You know that you and Lance Bass have something in common.
Oh, really? I can't wait to hear.
Your last name, Beaver and Bass, number one, start with B's, and they're both animals. So the one that I wanted to know about, because it was, I like anything with death and dark. I'm a little macabre.
You're going to point out another one of the goofy ones, aren't you?
Is In the Death Room.
I knew it.
I want to know, what is this movie about? I have not watched it.
In the Death Room is actually not that goofy. I was kind of, that's a short film based on a Stephen King short story.
And I love Stephen King. You know, I'm a massive fan.
It's Eric Bernard directed that. That was pretty serious. That was the first time I ever did anything where I had to shoot guns and run around and, I had to blast people away. And that was totally different. That was a different experience. But it takes place in a South American jail cell. And I was a journalist who was being held hostage. And it's a short story, a little known short story, but a lot of people have tried to adapt it into short film format or short movie format. A lot of people have done it pretty unsuccessfully.
Yeah.
If you look it up online, they're pretty sloppy.
Yeah.
Eric did a really good job with that, I thought.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to check that one out. And I've seen some of the outtakes of it, and I'm like, all right, you're intense in it. It's cool to see, again, just the range of things that you have done in your career. And, I'm tongue in cheek with the two that we were talking about. But
that one was done in Austin. In the Death
that was
Room.
it.
We shot that one in Austin. Yeah.
Now, again, when you are in this world, I would think, when you hear like movies that were in like the early 2000s, they have, your B-level celebrities, that are the Eliza Dushkus, and then you've got your NSYNC guys. Like, you were at an age young then, and like it can get a little bit like, I don't know. I feel like that time in film, there was, a celebrity was such a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it was paparazzi. I mean, like Hollywood, even if you're making films in Chicago, but like Los Angeles at that time was very showy. And I feel like there was a lot of mediocre work done by okay people during that time. And to get wrapped up in that scene.
Still the case, probably,
yeah,
I'm sure.
pretty much. But in that time, it feels glaringly obvious. But you did a few cool things. One of the ones I love that you did, which was so interesting because I think you got to observe, more than you can say act in, but you did High Fidelity, which, I mean, this is the thing that's so bizarre is at that time you were so close to the look of John Cusack. Mm-hmm. What did you learn as being like a stand-in is insane because you get to observe all of it.
I was John Cusack's stand-in photo double for about 3 weeks at the end of the shoot for High Fidelity, which was shot in Chicago. 2000, is that 99, 2000? And that was a fluke. I actually was auditioning for another role, and the casting director saw me and just was like, oh my God, turn around, looks at the back of my hair, and she's like, you're perfect, and made a phone call, and I replaced the existing stand-in photo double they had for John Cusack, who was like a chubby guy with I'm like, so obviously she got excited when she saw me. She's like, this is much better. But it was the last few weeks of the shoot. So, but yeah, as far as observing, the most interesting, that was the first major movie that I ever worked on.
Yeah.
The most interesting aspect of that was watching Stephen Frears, who was the director. Mm-hmm. Probably, I don't know what he's done lately to reference. He's done a lot of he did Dangerous Liaisons.
Oh, that's such a great film.
And he did a movie about Joe Orton with Gary Oldman called Prick Up Your Ears. But watching him was really interesting. He's just a really good, he's a director who comes from theater. He's real old school. I think, is he British? I don't.
Yeah.
But he's fantastic. Like watching him was definitely the highlight of
Did he work
on
fast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did actually. Not as fast as Clint Eastwood. But
did you got to observe Clint Eastwood?
Well, that's when you mentioned earlier that I had worked with some legends. I thought you were going to go to like
I was being I was being corny. But when was that?
I didn't really work with Clint Eastwood. I just did background extra work on a couple of Flags of Our Fathers and the Angelina Jolie thing he did, Changeling.
Yes.
And I had a speaking role in that, but it was cut out. But Clint Eastwood works one take all the time.
That's so cool.
Just one take,
yeah.
Okay, we got it. Let's move on. Now it's kind of interesting because now he's getting he's like 90. I think he is 90 or 91. But it was interesting to watch him get one take and move on. And then sometimes you watch his movies, and to be honest, it's like, maybe you should have got a couple more takes there, Clint. Not to question Clint Eastwood, but it's like you can see it sometimes when you watch some of his later films, like especially the last one. I don't remember.
After doing what you did, which to me is like, in the beginning when you're acting, so much grunt work, so much like pounding the pavement, but being
18
surrounded.
years, yeah. 18 years of like extra work, bit parts being cut out.
Yeah. And then keeping the passion still alive to still create and do something for yourself and make it yours.
Well, I wouldn't trade that experience. I mean, sometimes you feel like you'd like to have the years back, like a few years back, but I wouldn't trade that experience for anything, because it's kind of what made me be like, I have to do everything, structure it all on my own, make my own things at any cost.
Yeah.
If you have a limited audience, which you do sometimes, it's hard to reach as many people when you're making movies the way I do, but you have to just make the decision to there's certain sacrifices you have to make, but you at least are kind of doing it your own way. It sounds so corny, but it's like, it's the truth. Yeah. It's like, that's the point I reached. I reached a point where I was like, I don't want to be reliant on a bunch of other people. I'd rather just structure it my way and I want to be the general who's gathering all the forces and making the media, which in this case is movies.
What I also love to see is in your work as a filmmaker is I do like to see nods to past filmmakers, but still make it your own. What is it about Terrence Malick that is so ingrained in your filmmaking?
Wow. I mean, Terrence Malick to me is like, when you see his movies, it's almost like if you're sitting in the audience watching one of his movies, he's got like heat-seeking vision coming from his movies, and it's going straight for everything that's worth a shit in you.
Yeah.
Everything that's good, everything about you that makes you a, viable human being with some kind of worth with your very limited time on this planet. Like Malick's movies are aimed right at that, whatever it is. And he wants to draw that out of you. All of them, The New World, The Thin Red Line, certainly The Tree of Life, which I think is one of the best movies ever made.
What's your favorite shot?
In The Tree of Life? Oh, that's so hard.
Today, what's your favorite shot today?
Well, the one that comes to mind is when she's holding the little boy and oh God, it's so cheesy, but it's not. She's holding the little boy and she points up to the heavens and she says, "That's where God lives," joking, just talking to a little boy, and the camera just flies up in there and the music swells.
Yeah.
It's typical Malick. There's good shots every 45 seconds because that camera's roving constantly. He's got stream of consciousness, like.
And is he also the cinematographer for it as well?
No, is Emmanuel? I forget his last name. I feel terrible. He's wonderful. He did Birdman, and he's famous for keeping the camera moving. Malick's basically breathing with the camera. That's what I see when I watch his movies.
What film of yours do you feel like most or when you were going into it, that you felt that was something that was permeating in your shots?
Probably Eric Blair and I, the one I made in 2017 with Iris Wheatley, or Meryl.
Meryl's a beautiful film.
I was thinking about Malick a lot when I made Meryl in 2014. That's when I first really started getting into Malick. But what he does is so unique, and people try to emulate it. Like me, sometimes trying to emulate. I do it lightly, but it's like a lot of people do it constantly, like the whole movie, and it's always so
contrived
and egregious. It's like somebody trying to write a book and make it sound like Jack Kerouac, like so many people have done it, and it's like so grinding, It's like, or somebody trying to make a movie and make it look like a John Cassavetes movie, like really handmade, and it's like it never works. You have to go back to the source.
Really, it is. So what's different about making film in Austin than any other place?
Well, Austin is a great place to make movies. There's a lot of support. The Austin Film Society is fantastic. The AFS Cinema is fantastic. Linklater's got his hands in a lot of stuff. Robert Rodriguez has this Spy Kids and movies he did. He's got a lot of stuff going on in Austin, and there's a lot of independent movie making. There's a lot of resources. The pandemic sort of didn't wipe it out, but it definitely changed the landscape a little bit. It was slow, as it was everywhere during the pandemic, but especially in Austin. But I think it's going to pick up. I really hope. They just reopened the AFS Cinema, which was closed during the whole pandemic. So I'm excited about that. And Austin Film Society is trying to get things humming again.
As we kind of move forward out of COVID, you were still being creative during COVID. Now that you're out of it, what's on the agenda for you?
Well, we made a short film during COVID called Blue Horizon. That is played at the Kansas City Film Festival virtually, and it's also playing, I think, in a Albuquerque, New Mexico Film Festival, and we submitted it to a bunch of
You
other
actually
ones.
got like a bronze at the Albuquerque for one of your shorts, correct?
Yeah, it's called the Minefield Film Festival. I think it's pretty tiny. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. You get an email and they say you won a bronze award, and I'm
You're like, okay,
that's
thanks.
great. What is that?
Yeah.
But we made that one, and that's still pending at some film festivals. What's on the horizon? I have a documentary that I just did about a paraplegic friend of mine. It's called Running from Nothing. Adam Lane, a friend of mine in Oklahoma City who works with paraplegic people as a healer, and probably going to make definitely, I think, going to make a cross-country trip on a hand cycle. He's going to go from coast to coast. So we're working on that documentary and hoping we can wrap the documentary up with his actual trip. He was in a motorcycle accident, and Adam's fantastic. He's in Oklahoma City. So we got to wrap that up. That's still in post. And then I have 15 scripts on my computer that I'm always trying to shop around and get money for.
Yeah.
So I can make them. And there is one thing that I think I'm going to start shooting when I get back to Austin.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about it.
Not yet. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what you create coming up.
So I feel like I should make a comedy.
I do too.
A really crazy comedy.
I mean,
an absurd, farcical, psycho, way out there comedy. Like something that's sort of like people watch and go, I'm laughing and I don't know why.
You're one dark mother effer. You really are. And I mean, it's so funny because this interview
I'm
right
really
now,
not.
we're
I'm
so,
really not.
I love this because this is such a back and forth ping pong match, and you and I are so not that way.
We're putting the producer to sleep. He's snoring over there.
I know, seriously. So, so if you got through this podcast because you are curious about filmmaking, or you're a friend of Tom's or a friend of mine, thank you for watching. But in the next breath, though, what I love about this is lying down a real timeline of where you began and where you are and where you're going to go, because if you click onto the next episode, things are going to get a little strange, because Tom and I are going to bring out the dark side in both of us. Our friendship has been weird, fun, and a wild ride. So
this was just the rehearsal.
Yes, this was just the rehearsal.
This was just the warm up. We were just we were stretching.
Yes,
that's all. We were like getting our ligaments going.
I got to get some drinks into him as well. Anyway, on that note, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Seraphine podcast. I'm Seraphine Arocha. This was Tom Beaver.
Thank you.
Tom, where can they find you on social media?
Lionmouth Productions, Vimeo.com. Just look up Tom Beaver and Lionmouth Productions on Vimeo.com, and you can go on IMDb and find all those amazing things that Seraphine was talking about, like
Soul Survivor,
like
baby.
Soul Survivors
Tommy.
on the line, and also I'm forgetting one: Vimeo, IMDb, and the website. Yeah. And I'm on Instagram, but who cares?
I know, right? I love it. Well, we'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much for watching.